The first thing we're going to talk about is how to navigate an essay question. And I realize that you probably have written essays before, but in university, sometimes the questions that we're asked when we write an essay are a little bit more complicated to deal with. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to manage. When your prof gives you a topic, this may seem not very exciting to you because maybe you're not that interested in the topic that your prof asks you to write about. The goal of your professor assigning a topic to you is because they want to see how you can apply the knowledge and skills you got in class to a new situation or new ideas. So maybe your professor asks you to write an essay about healthcare in Canada, but you've been studying healthcare more broadly in the rest of the world. Or maybe you've been studying healthcare in Canada and they want you to think about healthcare in a different location, like in England or America or wherever. They want to see that you can apply skills and knowledge to new situations. They want to see how you can use your skills to solve problems. The best advice I can give you is if you don't understand the topic or you think you might need it put in different words, always ask your prof for help. Just as I was coming in here talking about, reaching out and not leaving yourself to be confused, but reaching out and asking for help, you can ask your prof, right? You should not be afraid to ask your professor questions. If your class has a TA, you can always ask your class TA, but there's lots of other places you can go. There are 3 writing centers on campus. The one in the Student Success Center, the English department runs one, and the Global Learning Center runs one. Any of those places are staffed with people who can help you sort out what your prof is asking you to do. But I do recommend you reaching out to your profs and building a relationship. It's a good idea to try to use the information that your professor gives you as a place to start. So you're going to probably get some kind of essay prompt. Very rarely is your prof just going to look at you and say, hey, go write an essay, and you're going to be able to do whatever you want, right? They're going to give you some directions. So some things that you can try rewriting the statements as questions. Sometimes profs can be very, very efficient at asking a question, and we'll look at an example of a very efficient question. And sometimes profs can be a little bit more long-winded. I, as a professor, I also teach in the English department, have a tendency to be a little bit more long-winded. So we're going to talk about how you can turn some of those more long-winded elements into questions that you can answer more directly. You can try rephrasing the question in your own words to make sure that you understand it. So if your prof asks you to do something and you are able to rephrase that so you can put it kind of how you understand it best, that's great. And you should really try to do that. I recommend that as a strategy, but just make sure that you check with your prof, right? So if you've rephrased a question, maybe go to their office hours or send them an email and say, hey, this is what I understood you were asking us for. Is this what you're asking us for? Because rephrasing it in your own words when you don't really understand it is not going to do much to benefit you. It's also a good idea to try and break a big topic, a very broad topic like healthcare in Canada, into subtopics. So what elements of healthcare in Canada can you think of that might be important? If you can start doing those things, you'll kind of be able to work your way through figuring out what your prof is asking for. So let's take a look here at an example. So let's say your professor says to you in a very straightforward kind of way, assess the success of provincial energy subsidy programs for Canadian consumers. If you are concerned about not knowing what words like assess and describe and analyze, interpret, what those words mean, all you need to do is go to the Student Success Center website. We've got some handouts there that will help you navigate those question words. But if you're given a statement, right, because this is not really a question to answer, it's a statement, one of the things that you can do is to try to work through the questions that are implied in the statement that you're given. So in order to answer a question like this, you have to answer certain parts of the question first, right? You want to ask, if your professor says, talk about how successful these programs are, the first question you want to know the answer to is, are provincial energy subsidy programs successful, right? If they're not successful, then assessing how successful they are is going to be really easy because you're going to just talk about how they failed. You also need to think about things like those words that we tend to understand through context, but not don't really have a ton of meaning, right? Your version of success and my version of success might be different. So the next thing you want to do is talk about how you need to define success. So what qualifies as successful in order to describe these programs that way? And the third thing you want to think about is what standards should be used to assess success. So if you decide a program is successful financially and politically, but maybe not so successful environmentally, does that still qualify as successful or not? So when you get given these questions, a lot of students go, well, I don't know what my prof wants me to do. I don't know how to even get started. A really good place to get started is to kind of pick out those key words, right? What does it mean to be successful? And then can we apply success to this particular thing? By asking yourselves these questions, and more importantly, right, working towards answers to these questions, you can start formulating your opinion and your argument, which is what your thesis statement is, right? And a thesis statement is a fairly integral part of every essay. So, right, your thesis statement might come out to be something like, the provincial energy subsidy programs can be considered successful because they've saved homeowners money on energy products while also funding important environmental projects to slow climate change and supporting local social programs for low-income families. What you'll notice, right, is like your friend, the 5-paragraph essay, this thesis statement has 3 very clear sections. Your reader knows you're going to talk about saving homeowners money. Your reader knows you're going to talk about funding important environmental projects, and your reader knows you're going to talk about supporting social programs for low-income families. Your essay will need to address those 3 areas as you work your way to an answer. So what you talk about, if you're given this kind of very like low-key statement question, what you talk about is up to you, but you need to be reminding your readers what it is that you are going to cover in your paper. And you need to be remembering that your thesis statement needs to be an argument. You need to pick a side in a debate, right? Someone could come along and say, no, these provincial energy subsidy programs aren't successful. Maybe your friend will write that essay. But remember that a thesis statement involves choosing a side in a debate, and there has to be an other side. Otherwise, there's no debate.